Hello, everybody, and welcome to What the Hell Should I Watch? I'm Steve Stebbing,
And I'm Chloe Stebbing.
and we come at you every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We are the show that gives you the rundown of what we're watching, which may become what you're watching for the coming weekend and week. And well, I teased a bit of imaginary friend fun, some decidedly better than the horror offering we got from Blumhouse. But it's kicking off this week of all the fresh stuff for your eyeballs. All right, so John Krasinski taking a little break from doing the Quiet Place movies, even though we do get a Quiet Place movie this year, but which I'm very much looking forward to. And the more trailers we get, I'm excited about that prospect. But he wanted to make a bit more of a fluffier movie, and I don't know. Seeing the ad campaign, I knew about 15 minutes into the movie that this was very, very much a cutesy kids movie, not a fun comedy Ryan Reynolds vehicle, but this was full on kids movie. Did you get that from the ad campaign?
That it was a full-on kids movie, mostly. Like I kind of felt that it was aimed for like ages like 8 to 12 maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it very much was the like all the jokes were pretty much in the trailer. There was not really any laugh to it. There was more just kind of like smiles because at the end of the day, the best way I can equate this movie is it was like a sugar cookie that was like hollow. So it really
A nothing
depended.
burger.
Yeah, it was a nothing burger. It very much depended on trying to be cute and likable, and forgot that you actually had to care about the characters, that there had to be enough there that I was like into the ride that I was being taken on. And it just felt a lot like a lot of glossiness, a lot of John Krasinski's friends coming together. It was like the voices of the imaginary friends, because I know I heard Clooney in there. You got Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Actually, I didn't even let you give the synopsis. I just steamrolled you once again.
A young girl who goes through a difficult experience begins to see everyone's imaginary friends who have been left behind as their real life friends have grown up. Starring Kaylee Fleming, Ryan Reynolds, John Krasinski, Phoebe Waller Bridge, Louis Gossett Jr., and Steve Carell. And it's written and directed by John Krasinski.
And who is the father in this as well, and he is like this goofy likable guy of Ryan Reynolds' character is like he seems like jaded by being in the whole imaginary friends business, so that's his charm. He leads into the kind of curmudgeon-y humor side of
Hmm.
it. And people play so much into their strengths that it's almost been there, done that, even though we're dealing with a film with imaginary friends. Um, it's not a bad movie. It just, like you said, it's a nothing burger. And I don't know. I can't even like recommend you need to see it in theaters. It's just there. It's there. It's not neither good nor bad, just is. So that's kind of how I landed on If. I don't know how you feel about this film. If you had any hopes in this film at all.
I didn't have any hopes or expectations for this film. Um, I kind of felt the same way about this that I felt about the Super Mario movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's gonna be something that's aimed at children, and because it's aimed at children, it's probably going to be quite dry, quite recycled. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the cast for both those movies,
Yeah.
like both Super Mario Bros. And If, are really good. Except I
Yeah.
don't agree with the choice to cast Chris Pratt as Mario, but that's a discussion for something else.
Yeah. Just wait till we have to cover Garfield in the future.
uh,
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just If is just kind of a movie that tries really hard to be likable, and it kind of glares through. All right, so next let's head for an Australian noir with Limbo.
Limbo follows the investigation of a 20-year-old Outback cold case murder by jaded detective Travis Hurley, starring Simon Baker, Rob Collins, and Natasha Wanganeen, written and directed by Ivan Sen.
And Ivan Sen is kind of the king of the slow burn Aussie Outback murder mystery. And usually it has a bit of an aboriginal story to it within it, and this one does as well, because I mean they're more of the marginalized stories. Of course, being in Canada, we know all about um marginalized indigenous murders and everything. And Simon Baker, who's largely known as the Mentalist, I don't know if you ever went through that series at all, procedural series, or
Is he the main guy in The
yeah, he
Mentalist?
is. Yeah.
Okay, then I
He's
know
the
who he is.
mentalist. So he's got like a shaved head, he's got like neck tattoos, like he's kind of like this jaded ex-cop. Or well, he is a current cop, but he's like very much on his way out. He's kind of disillusioned with the whole situation. And he's investigating this cold case murder. And I don't know, Ivan Sen is really good at telling these stories. This is probably my least favorite of his films. Goldstone, which I saw at VIFF, probably my first or second year covering that festival, I really enjoyed that one. But this one's told in black and white, and they filmed it in this town called Coober Pedy, which is an opal mining town. And a large part of this town's infrastructure is built into the landscape, into the rock and everything. They even have, and you can Google this, an underground hotel, which is these like very like round looking rooms that are built in these caverns underground. And I don't know if I have the heart or wherewithal to like stay in a hotel like this, but it's the architecture of it all is really neat. There's a church done like this as well, and this is kind of how the film opens as well, as in one of these hotel rooms. So aesthetically, it's really really neat, but the story is very very slow burn, and you really have to kind of be patient with these characters and with the storytelling. And as far as mainstream films, I don't think it would land very well, just because it is one of those drawn out type of mysteries. But as far as Ivan Sen goes, I enjoy his work a lot, and I don't see him kind of slowing down at all. And again, I'm a sucker for an Aussie film at the end of the day, so I'm kind of into it. And there's no well, no, I'll get into spoiler territory, so I'll kind of leave it right there. Another one that is available on the streaming right now, a rental streaming, which is why I put it in fresh for your for your eyeballs, if I can say that correctly. It's a new Nick Cage movie. It is Arcadian.
A father and his twin teenage sons fight to survive in a remote farmhouse at the end of the world. Starring Nicolas Cage, Jaden Martell, and Maxwell Jenkins, directed by Benjamin Brewer.
And Benjamin Brewer did a film with Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood in 2016 called The Trust, which was like a heist film set in Las Vegas. This is a very, very different one, dealing with monsters in a post-apocalypse. But the rule is, if you see Nicolas Cage's name um, on the description of something, you just click play, and you get
Pretty
into
much.
that stuff right away, because it's either good, it may be good, it may be bad, it may be middle of the road, but it will always be some sort of interesting. And Nick Cage takes a little bit of a back seat to the two younger actors at a certain point in this movie. Jaden Martell, who people may know from It, I know from Midnight Special, which I really, really loved that film. He is solid as always in this one. But Maxwell Jenkins, who was in the Mark Wahlberg film Joe Bell, which I really enjoyed, he gives another solid outing as well. And the writer of this film is a guy named Michael Nylon, who is actually Nicolas Cage's agent, and his manager and producing partner. Previously, he wrote Braven for Nick Cage. Um, and this is kind of where my disconnect with this movie and where I kind of fell off, because like I said in the description, their their world is descended on every night by these monsters that dig through the ground. And Benjamin Brewer has stated that the movies were based on the design of Goofy from Disney. And I'm not I don't think that this works in its advantage, and it because the design cut does come off as goofy and kind of dumb. There's certain movements with the monster that I didn't really enjoy at all. Maybe I understand what the practicality is to it, but the execution just wasn't there. And my other complaint is that the cinematography is felt like it was really dark in a lot of places. And given that I watched this movie kind of in the daytime over this weekend, um, maybe that was the problem. Maybe I should have seen this in theaters, though I don't wouldn't have been able to because it was very limited release, or watched it at night. But yeah, some of the cinematography just was a little hazy for me and didn't work. Um,
That's really funny that they model it after Goofy because I've been playing Disney's Dreamlight Valley like video game for the past little while. And Goofy is like one of the first characters that you interact with, and
mhm.
watching him walk around because it's like 3D characters that walk around the map and whatever. Watching him manipulate his body to move around is one of the most horrifying things. So, I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, I see. I didn't get it, and it's really good to get this perspective on the other side because it does sound so like, what the hell are you doing? You're basing your creature model on Goofy, but
I think
if
this was
you can
very
see it,
personal.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
can see this, then maybe it has some space to work with. And I know, given Nicolas Cage, you'll eventually watch this one as well. So, and given it's a monster movie, it's like a
yeah.
creature feature. Yeah, I can definitely see your interest peaked with that one. So, yeah, being a Nicolas Cage movie, if you like Nick Cage, I would definitely check it out. All right, so that does it for things that are streamable for theaters or VOD. Uh, and let's move on to something you can watch at home, something for your Blu-ray disc. First up, I'm gonna get. I know, Chloe, you're gonna come after me for this one, but there's a new 4K release of it, and it's Magic Mike.
A male stripper teaches a younger performer how to party, pick up women, and make easy money. Starring Channing Tatum. Oh my God, Channing Tatum, Alex Pettyfer, Matt Bomer, Joe Manganiello, and Matthew McConaughey. Directed by Steven Soderbergh.
And I know exactly what you're like. Why are we bringing this? And like, I watched this one before the recent third film came out, Magic Mike's Last Dance, which is reported to be the final film in these Magic Mike movies, because I'd never seen any of them before. So I watched the first movie, and I like Steven Soderbergh as a filmmaker. He's a really great filmmaker. He's made incredible films, Traffic, the Ocean's movies, I mean, Haywire, the list goes on and on. Lucky Logan, which is another great film that he did with Channing Tatum. But these movies are definitely closer to Channing Tatum's heart because they're slightly based on a true story, on his true story. The first film is actually pretty well written. They got good characters, and as far as male stripper movies go, it is the more enjoyable male stripper movie. It's got great casting to it. And I don't know. I avoided this movie for a long time, and I shouldn't have because it was actually a solid film. But from what I hear, and I haven't continued down the road yet, it is diminishing returns once you go to XXL and then Last Dance. Um, but I don't know. Channing Tatum's really solid in this. He puts his all into this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of his, besides the 21 Jump Street movies, which I really like those movies, and a movie he did a couple years ago called Dog, which is really good. I highly recommend that film. Which he also directed that movie and wrote it with the same writer as this movie. And on this 4K, the only special feature is one called Backstage on Magic Mike, which is just a featurette. And yeah, it's a solid film. So let's head to the next one, which was an Academy Award nominated film from 1988. It is Stand and Deliver.
The story of Jamie Escalante, a high school teacher who successfully inspired his dropout prone students to learn calculus, starring Edward James Olmos and Lou Diamond Phillips, written and directed by Ramon Menendez. Men- Menendez.
Menendez. And his
Menendez.
name is Jaime Escalante. And this is kind of a standard inner city drama, inner city school drama, but this is kind of one of the ones that kind of started it all, was one of the big ones, because I think Lean on Me came on after this film. But James Olmos is really, really great in this film. He was nominated for an Academy Award for this film. He ended up losing the Best Actor statue to Dustin Hoffman for Rain Man. But this is also a very young Lou Diamond Phillips in this one. He's young and dreamy in this one. You can
Yeah, he's
definitely
beautiful.
tell. Yeah, you can definitely tell why he became a star,
Yeah.
because Young Guns came after this one, and he had his leading man push at the beginning of the 90s as well. And I mean, the dude's still a good looking dude now. Like, he's got good genes, but I really love his character Angel in this film. And yeah, you can feel the dangerous mindsness. You can feel the inner city school, them forming up around the teacher type of film in it. It's also endearing to know that this is a true story, and that Edward James Olmos was very close with Jaime Escalante up until his death in 2010. And that they wrote a lot of the dialogue together for this film in the lead up to filming. Um, it's definitely a likable film, and one of those true stories where even the guy that the movie was based on said that, yeah, this was 90% true, and then 10% that Hollywood glitz and glam to it. So it is definitely a likable true story, and a bare bones Warner Archive release, but definitely glad that I watched it, because I'd never seen it before watching it now. All right, let's get to some TV on the Blu-ray, and this one arrived just at the right time because I was streaming it, but now I've got the Blu-ray to watch. It is Doom Patrol Season 4, the final season.
The adventures of an idealistic mad scientist and his field team of superpowered outcasts, starring Diane Guerrero, April Bowlby, Matt Bomer, Brendan Fraser, Joyvan Wade, and Michelle Gomez, created by Jeremy Carver based on the characters created for DC Comics, and it's available on Crave and Blu-ray.
And I love this series. I think I've already talked about it on the show a little bit, maybe fleetingly.
Yeah.
But it is the weirdo side of DC. So this isn't your Superman, this isn't your Justice League, this isn't even Teen Titans, this isn't any of those heroes that you're really in the know on, except for Cyborg. Cyborg is kind of the thing that ties it all together. But this show is so quirky, so weird, and also so R-rated, and it brings things to the narrative that I never would have thought that we'd be talking about. Like, without saying any spoilers, one of the major apocalyptic things is these things called were butts, and they bite you and you turn into basically a butt on legs that eats things. Just know that this cast rocks. I mean, I love the voice of Brendan Fraser, who is Robot Man Cliff Steele in this show, who is hilarious and just his delivery of lines is just perfect. Matt Bomer, who I've enjoyed since White Collar. But even Diane Guerrero or April Bowlby or Michelle Gomez, these are actresses that I'm not super familiar with that really endeared themselves to me over this whole run. And it's actually really cool to see that this show is able to go out on its own accord and is not just having the axe dropped on it, and for it to have this open-ended sadness that a lot of shows, especially shows as weird as this one, usually fall prey to. Like, usually don't get an ending on a weirdo show, but
Yeah.
we did on this one. So I'm not there yet. I'm still mid season 4, but I'm very happy to be watching it on disc rather than on streaming. So um, and I also will close out in saying that this is also has one of my favorite theme songs in recent times. I even liked it on Spotify. I'm that kind of a nerd. I love film scores and movie scores, and I'll always have them kind of circling around in my liked playlist. All right, so let's see what's streaming now, what's available right now to just click on and start watching. It's the streaming pile. All right. After that clunky intro, I'm gonna get better at having segments. I swear it. I will get better. This first one, and I'm a big music documentary nerd, especially a biopic documentary. Disney did this one. It is The Beach Boys.
A celebration of the legendary band that revolutionized pop music and created the harmonious sound that personified the California Dream. Directed by Frank Marshall and Zimney. Available on Disney Plus.
It's really crazy about Frank Marshall and directing this, because I mean, this is a long time ago that he made. I think it was his debut with this film. But Frank Marshall was the guy that directed Arachnophobia in
Okay.
1990, I think, with Bill Pullman. Do you ever seen Arachnophobia?
Um, I can't remember. I know what it is though.
Yeah, or it was Jeff
That's a
Daniels.
weird term.
What did I say? Yeah,
Bill
but
Pullman.
he, Bill Pullman. Well, because they were interchangeable for a little. Bill Pullman was the dad in Casper. Jeff
hmm
Daniels is the dad in this one. Jeff Daniels was also the dad in Fly Away Home with Anna Paquin, where they have a family of ducks that they nurse back to health, which was roughly around the same time, probably 93, 94. It's probably the whole family film game. But Arachnophobia, because it's directed by Frank Marshall, is part of the Amblin Entertainment game, which is Amblin Entertainment is Steven Spielberg's company. They did E.T. and Jurassic Park and all those movies together. Those are all Amblin Entertainment. But he directs this very dutiful look through one of the greatest American rock bands of all time. Whether you're a fan or not, you know who the Beach Boys are. It's generational. Do you know who the Beach Boys are? Have you heard of the Beach Boys?
I've probably heard their
Yeah, I
music, but
guarantee you've
can't
heard their
pin.
music. Good Vibrations is them. California Girls is them. Um,
When I hear
Help Me
California Girls, I think
Rhonda.
of Katy Perry.
Okay,
So.
it's not the Katy Perry one, but you would like. I guarantee, like, they also God Only Knows is them. They are a pivotal band. They are like the Beatles. They are one of those influential groups that had their foothold on not just American music, but just music in general at a certain point in time. And actually, they had a competitive nature with the Beatles, because the Beatles were just as obsessed with the Beach Boys as the Beach Boys were with them. Like, there was a competitive drive to both of their albums. So when, like, an album like Pet Sounds comes out, it inspires the Beatles to make Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Like, they feed off of each other, and because of this, we got some of the greatest music ever. And it's really cool to see that from the Beach Boys side. And also, this documentary, I will say, steers away from tragedy quite a bit, because Brian Wilson did eventually was diagnosed suffering from schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder, and had his massive bouts of depression. Even now, since the passing of his wife, now he's being put into conservatorship. I know I'm saying that wrong, but
Conservatorship?
conservatorship, and um, like, so they definitely skirted the battles within the band. They only fleetingly talk about the animosity between Wilson and Mike Love, another member of the band. Um, But at the same time, it's very cool to see them explore Pet Sounds, which I argue is one of the greatest records of all time. And for all of its whatever it glosses over, it's still an entertaining film at the end of the day. Let's keep the music going with what I think, and I think what a lot of would agree with me, probably the greatest concert film of all time. Stop Making Sense.
Considered by critics as the greatest concert film of all time, the live performance was shot over the course of 3 nights at Hollywood's Pantages Theater in December of 1983 and features Talking Heads' most memorable songs, starring the Talking Heads. Written and directed by Jonathan Demi?
Demi.
Demi.
Yeah.
Available on Crave.
Jonathan Demme is also known for directing Silence of the Lambs. Was one of his big films. Um, and this A24 put this film back into theaters, of course, not in a wide release. So, being in a small market like I am, I did not get to see this on the big screen. So, I didn't, once again, have not been able to see this on the big screen, but I rewatched it on Crave. Yeah, it holds up to what they say, in my opinion. But I also really like the Talking Heads, really like the creativity of David Byrne and company, and I'm a psycho for his work, for Tina Weymouth, who's also excellent. And I mean, the fact that this film opens with David Byrne walking up on stage with the acoustic guitar and a boombox, and then pressing play, and it's just the drum beat for Psycho Killer, as just him and that beat and the guitar plays Psycho Killer, which is, I love that song. I don't know how
Yeah.
versed in Talking Heads you are. If
I know Psycho Killer, and that's
you
kind
know,
of it.
Burning Down the House,
Yes, I know that one
you know,
as
Burning
well.
Down the House, and you probably know Once in a Lifetime. Um, there, there are probably songs of theirs, once you hear it, you know that song.
Probably.
And it's just because they make such original music, and they are such original performers, and David Byrne is such a showman, so him working with Demi to make this not just a concert experience but a cinematic experience as well works so well, because there's also beautiful use of lighting, the way the stage does come together, the way the band does fill out as this concert experience progresses is incredible to watch. Also, A24 did a additional album, taking other artists and having them do cover songs of the songs that were on this concert. So out of it, we got Paramore doing "Burning Down the House," which is like the perfect pairing because I'm a huge Paramore fan. So, and I just think that those sensibilities line up so beautifully, especially the group that Paramore has become with their, even in the last album, This Is Why. Um, I digress entirely on that one to my music side, but this is just a beautiful pairing of music and film. And I almost feel like this is stopping making sense is like a Criterion level. It might actually be Criterion, and I might be spacing on that, but if it's not, it should be, because it's just one of those type of films. It's kind of like Scorsese's concert film with the band, The Last Waltz, which is Criterion. Um, I think that it should be held in that degree as well. All right, let's move on to another one. Let's shift genres, and let's go with something scary. Destroy All Neighbors.
Struggling prog rock musician William Brown finds himself in a living nightmare when he accidentally kills Vlad, the neighbor from hell. Starring Jonah Ray, Kieran Diol, Alex Winter, John Daly, and Thomas Lennon. Directed by Josh Forbes, and it's available on Shudder.
And by scary, I meant not scary. I meant more horror, gory horror, and that's what this one is. Jonah Ray, I first found out about him through the Nerdist podcast with Chris Hardwick. It was him, Chris Hardwick, and Kumail Nanjiani usually, who does cameo in this movie as well in a really, really funny scene. But this one, it's basically just dumb, over the top comedy, um, digging a lot of jokes at prog rock nerds like myself. which I thought was kind of endearing. It is kind of creatively ambitious here and there, but it doesn't lean far enough into it. But it is cool to see Alex Winter do some goofy horror, go under prosthetics, and do some crazy stuff. Because it reminds me of a film that he did like 1990, where he directed as well, called Freaked, where he gets turned into a monster with a sock for a head, and he has to join the circus, and it has Mr. T as the bearded woman, and the villain is Randy Quaid as like this villainous circus leader and everything.
Randy
uh
Quaid.
yeah, Randy Quaid before he like spun off the planet as a complete weirdo. It's also got John Daly in it, as a stand-up comedian and a comedic actor that I really like, who plays like the self-help guy. Like he's like a YouTube video that Jonah Ray's character is watching the whole time, that eventually starts to speak to him. And the gore to this is very comedic based. And as far as like horror comedy, I would lean, especially in the music, like the music leaning horror comedy, which I know is a very focused genre. I would lean towards the Foo Fighters horror film Studio 666, which I actually thought was kind of genius in a lot of
The
ways.
what?
And yeah, the Foo Fighters did a horror film called Studio 666. And it was while Taylor Hawkins was still alive, rest in peace. It's really funny, and it's actually got some really great kills to it. Whitney Cummings is in it. There's a bunch of people in it that it's really funny. I recommend, especially if it also features the Foo Fighters doing like a death metal album. So I kind of recommend it.
Whenever I think about the Foo Fighters, I think about when I learned that like a few of their members um did like anti-AIDS rallies, but they weren't like AIDS are bad, it's AIDS doesn't exist.
Oh,
I
what?
Yeah, I will put something up
Okay.
on the screen. Like they used to do this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know
It
that.
was pretty crazy to learn about, but
Oh, I learned something today
anyways.
myself. All right, well let's head to the scandal papers for Scoop.
Had the BBC obtained the bombshell interview with Prince Andrew about his friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, starring Gillian Anderson, Keely Hawes, Billy Piper, Rufus Sewell, and Romola Garai, directed by Philip Martin, and it's available on Netflix.
And I mean a solid cast, because I like Billy Piper from Doctor Who, and who played Rose, the first companion to Christopher Eccleston there. And Gillian Anderson is doing another true story role. Gillian Anderson is like one of the greatest character actresses of our time right now, and Rufus Sewell is like pretty much unrecognizable as Prince Andrew, again playing a real person. And I mean, this is a very paint by numbers journalist movie, but still, when it gets to that third act and it gets to that actual interview between Gillian Anderson's character and Prince Andrew, it's still like it's still such a bumbling bombshell scandalous interview of a guy that is just careening out of control trying to protect a relationship that is very hard to protect, and had should have been hard to protect since 2006 at least, where when Jeffrey Epstein was convicted at that time for sex crimes. It's also really creepy, the makeup level even on the beginning, because they show the paparazzi getting pictures of Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein on a walk through Central Park, and the actor that they have playing Jeffrey Epstein, who has no lines or anything, he's just basically just for the picture scene, is creepy levels. Like it was like they got Jeffrey Epstein. It's so creepy. Um, and I really have to commend Philip Martin, who is also known for doing 7 or 8 episodes of The Crown, which is kind of where that Andrew correlation comes. He does the tension really well in the actual interview that airs in the third act. That makes the movie really worth watching in the end. So kind of a so-so journalist movie, but once it gets to that scene, it really kind of hits its high gear, I think. Let's hit some television. I've been holding this one off for a bit, but I finally got to see the first couple of episodes of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire.
Based on Anne Rice's iconic novel, follows Louis Dupont's epic story of love, blood, and the perils of immortality, as told to the journalist Daniel Molloy, starring Jacob Anderson, Sam Reed, and Eric Bogosian. Created by Roland Jones, based on the novels by Anne Rice, and it's available on AMC Plus.
So yeah, and I'm a really big fan of these books because I read them in high school, and I read Interview, Vampire Lestat, and Tale of the Body Thief like one after the other. Um, and I'm really happy that they're tackling these ones again. Although they are changing it a bit, they modernized it. They brought, especially the actual interview part between Louis and Daniel, because they've acknowledged that they talked years ago, and now time has passed again, and they've both matured and gone through a life since, and now Daniel is ailing from a terminal disease, it looks like, and it's a refresher for them to tell the story again. um but they acknowledge that it's in our world because they acknowledge the pandemic, which I haven't seen a lot of shows since the pandemic acknowledge it. I feel like you can count on one hand how many shows actually acknowledge the pandemic. Um, but because they've modernized it, they've updated where Louis' origins are from, and now he's like um the 1910 era in New Orleans. Um and Louis was essentially a pimp as a human before he died and became a vampire.
But he's a
And
vampire pimp?
yeah, he's a vampire pimp. And the lead is Jacob Anderson. He played Grey Worm in Game of Thrones. And I
Oh.
generally really like him, and he has a lot to work with this time. I don't think he had a lot to work with in Game of Thrones. He had a little bit of storyline with Miss Andrea and everything towards the end of his character's run, but I don't think he got a chance to shine. This is that chance now, especially the difference between young Lewis and the modern day Lewis. I think it's such an interesting blend of character, and I really like Eric Bogosian, who's playing Daniel Malloy. There's a certain um like Anthony Bourdain quality to how he's playing this character, like this jaded former junkie a guy that's basically lived through it all and is sardonic and jaded because of it, and I enjoy that a lot. And this show kicks the sex into high gear. There's a lot of sex and a lot of steaminess to it, but also when
Well,
that
it's an Anne
violence.
Rice vampire
Yeah.
thing, so yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So they're really leaning into her to that side, the romantic side, the steamy side, but also when there is needs to be gore, there's definite gore, especially at the end of that first episode. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm in for this. So it definitely shot it to more importance of the shows that I take in. So I'm looking forward to, now that the second season has kicked off, I'm looking forward to dig into more of this. The next one is The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Based on an eponymously titled novel, this is the powerful real life story of Lali Sokolov, a Jewish prisoner who was tasked with tattooing ID numbers on the prisoner's arms in the Auschwitz Birkenau concentration camp during World War II. Fancy that, we have another Holocaust related title on this show. We should almost rename this show to, or like a segment to, like the next Holocaust thing we're talking about. But I don't
The
know,
Holocaust segment.
the Holocaust segment of the week, which sounds a lot worse than
Yep.
I'm meaning it to be. But I mean, this is another recounting of a story. Your modern time, you have Harvey Keitel is
Lolo in this series. Sorry, Lali Sokolov. Why did I say Lolo? I don't even know. But I even recognized that it was Harvey Keitel for a couple scenes into it. I'm like, holy shit, it's Harvey Keitel. But Melanie Linsky is in this one as well, and I really, really love Melanie Linsky, especially because I'm watching through Yellow Jackets right now. I'm just past mid season 2. Even though I don't like her character in that show, I really like her. But she's blonde in this movie, and that threw me off a lot. And it's funny. It really is funny how much a hairstyle change could completely change how an actress looks to you. It's like when Zoe Deschanel doesn't have bangs. When I'm
Yeah.
like, who is that? That's how I felt about this one. But it was immediately my like I'm definitely interested in watching this show. But the younger version of him, the one that plays your main role of Lolly is Jonah Howard King. And the only thing that I've seen him in before is he played Prince Eric in the new um live action Little Mermaid.
Oh.
He's yeah, so this is the second thing now I've seen him. Actually, truth be told, I didn't mind that remake. I thought it was actually pretty enjoyable. And he wasn't bad in it. So to see him stretch out and play something definitely a lot more dramatic and more dire is interesting to see. Um, but it very much is a romance at its core, and I didn't realize that until the end of the first episode, where they introduce Anna Proshniak's character, who is I've never seen her before. She is gorgeous. Of course, all the characters have shaved heads in this one, and even with a shaved head, she is staggeringly beautiful. And I can understand why they cast her, because she is very photogenic. And the first scene, they between the two, they play that one really well. um, I just don't want to subscribe to Stack TV for this, and this the way that you find this that you can find this show. It's Stack TV or Global, so you have to have cable to get this show, and I'm a little off put by that. So hopefully
Yeah.
somebody else picks that one up, because I don't want cable for this. Come
Yeah,
on.
like I have Stack through Prime. So this came up for me, and because it pertains to the Holocaust, I was interested. But like I read the synopsis and I watched the trailer and I was like, this I feel kind of romanticizes the Holocaust. And that kind of put me off a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't feel like maybe the trailer's portraying it a little differently, but I didn't feel that exactly. But there are weird things to it. And especially in modern day guy, he has an inner Nazi that talks to him.
Huh?
So it's hard. I'm butchering it, you know how I'm saying it. So, but
An
the one that
inner
terrorized the
Nazi.
one that terrorized him still terrorizes him, but in his psyche.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, hopefully it gets picked up broader than where it's getting picked up now. This next one is an Adult Swim one. It is Smiling Friends.
Follows employees of a small company dedicated to bringing happiness to a bizarre yet colorful world, created by Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel, available on Stack TV.
Yes, another Stack available one. I have the first season on Blu-ray. Season 2 is now just starting on Stack. And this is the deranged mind of Australian Michael Cusack, who makes weird animated films. I first saw his work with the show Koala Man, which is on Disney Plus, which features Hugh Jackman voice in it, and it is weird and deranged. And for people that like a hallucinatory madness show like Super Jail or things like that would get into this is one of those short ones too. Each episodes is like 11 to 13 minutes long, and basically each episode is them trying to put a smile on somebody's face. And the first episode is a guy that basically the whole episode he has a gun to his head the whole episode, threatening to kill himself the entire episode. And it is just wild and stupid enough that I'm already hooked on it. And This show actually shares a connection with another YouTube viral short, because the guy that did Salad Fingers is involved in this show.
Really?
Yeah, the voice of Salad Fingers is in the show. I think it's episode 4, season 1.
Well, that's
So,
pretty cool.
so yeah, Salad Fingers makes an appearance in the Smiling Friends. I don't know. I like weird cartoons, so that's why I requested this one when it came out. So, season 2 coming out finally got me around to digging up season 1, and I'm enjoying it so far. All right, and finally, let's get to the new mystery, The Veil.
Follows the relationship between two women playing a deadly game of truth and lies. One woman has a secret and the other has a mission to reveal it before thousands of lives are lost. Starring Elizabeth Moss, created by Stephen Knight, and it's available on Disney Plus. I really like Elizabeth Moss.
I do too. And it's funny because Disney hooked me up with the first few episodes of this weeks ago, and I just spaced on it and didn't get around to it until watching an episode yesterday. And I like her a lot. She is definitely operating, her character in this one is definitely one that's operating with a lot of confidence and cockiness. So that there's definitely an air to her character that I haven't seen her really explore before, because I'm used to like Mad Men Peggy, where she builds into that confidence as the series progresses, or The Invisible Man, where she's a victim of abuse. So
Yeah, well, like even
you
in
know,
Handmaid's Tale, which is where I'm most familiar with her, she's a victim. Like
hmm
she's oppressed.
hmm
Yeah, and she gains more independence, if you want to call it that,
yeah.
throughout the show.
But the mystery, I think, in the Veil is figuring out her character, because I mean the series starts with her basically getting a it looks like a high ends arms dealer put away by Interpol, and then she requests a new name, and then the next scene and the next drive of it, she shows up in like a Syrian refugee camp. So I don't, it's the show is playing very close to its chest as far as revealing what it's all about. Stephen Knight, the creator, is no slouch. He did Peaky Blinders. He did the Jason Momoa Apple TV Plus series C, and he also did, ironically, All the Light We Cannot See for Netflix. So he is kind of all over the place, but generally a pretty good show writer. The reviews on the show, as far as it progresses, aren't great. They say that Moss is really good, but the show isn't to the caliber of the star that she is. On the helping side, the show also features Josh Charles, who I really like in a lot of shows, that everything he shows up in, whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, I generally like him. So it's definitely enough to keep me watching, but like the Netflix series Three Body Problem, there is a drawn out slow burn to this, and I just hope it pays off. All right, let's check out what's new up on my shelves this week. All right, new to the library this week, 12 Strong has been released in 4K. This is with Chris Hemsworth, Michael Shannon, and Michael Pena. This is a military exercise movie, one that definitely didn't get a lot of good reviews, kind of got in the war film department, it's probably sitting near your 13 hours the soldiers of Benghazi, a movie that probably a lot of people have forgotten existed. But it's going to be interesting to give it another watch on 4K. Features the featurettes, the making of an impossible mission, a monumental effort building America's response monument. And Chris Hemsworth was looking for a hit around this time, and there have been few and far between. I think his hit is coming, and I'll talk about that in just a second.
I
Also,
also like Michael Shannon.
I like Michael Shannon a lot, and I really like Michael Pena. I remember not being huge on this film the first time I watched it, but I'm gonna give it a second watch, and well, I'll bring it back to this show, and we'll see where I land on it a second time. Because I gave another film that I didn't like a second watch just today. I'm bringing it next week, and my opinion hasn't changed. It might have gotten worse. The other one that's hitting my shelves this week is the Powerpuff Girls complete series box set. All 78 episodes in one set, 30 hours of bonus content, including the holiday special and also fan favorite extras, but not the movie. The movie is not included in this, which kind of is a bummer. But still, it's the Powerpuff Girls. And I feel like generationally, this is an important show.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I'm teasing it now. Warner Brothers, I think in a couple months, is going to be sending me Dexter's Laboratory, and I feel like I'm going to have like the Thanos gauntlet of all the great original cartoon shows,
Hmm.
like just like that. But that's all that's hitting the shelf, and I've got a little reminder for everybody. That's right. This week's reminder is that Land of Bad is now out on Blu-ray. I reviewed this on the February 23rd episode. It is a drone action flick starring Liam Hemsworth, Milo Ventimiglia, and Russell Crowe. I thought it was a pretty solid film. It was done by William Eubank, who did The Signal, not the anthology horror film The Signal, but the sci-fi film The Signal with Lawrence Fishburne, which is kind of a cool little film, and a film that I think is highly underrated called Underwater with Kristen Stewart and a giant Cthulhu monster underwater that I thought was
Hmm.
just a very cool underrated film. Land of Bad, not as good as those two films, but still a solid watch. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Before we go there, I've got a little taste of something coming. That's right. The taste of next week, and I teased it a little bit, saying that Chris Hemsworth was looking for a hit, and he might have found it. And that is playing villain Doctor Demento, Doctor Dementor, Doctor Dementis, Doctor Dementis. There we go. In Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Chloe, this is one of the movies that I've been looking forward to all year. Like this is one of those big dominoes to fall this year. And the reviews I don't know if you're paying attention right now, are really, 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 really good. So I'm really, really, really excited about this movie. I'm so excited. I can't even contain it. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode of What the Hell Should I Watch? I am on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Threads at the Stevel Dead.
I'm on Letterboxd at HoneyBunChloe.
And you can also, if you need to ask any questions to Chloe, she's not on social media, so you can just ask them in the the whole comment section down below. Please give us a rate and subscribe. You can find these full episodes on stevestebbing.ca as well, right here on YouTube, and with my buddy Shane Hewitt at the shiftheads.ca. You can also join the Shift Heads Facebook group as well, where they're rocking over 4,000 subscribers. We've emptied out our list for this week. We got to fill it up again. So until then, have a good one.